Well, guys, we're going to be breaking one of our rules for this um, F1 review um, because we've got so much to talk about, and we haven't got the opportunity to talk about all the unassuming and lesser known winners of a race because there was so much that happened in the Qatar Grand Prix, and then more happened, and we'll address that, of course. And I want to mention here, like one of the things that we're not going to be mentioning here is Carlos Sainz's podium, which was absolutely incredible and everything like that, because there is so much to talk about. And genuinely, I fear that this video could almost be as long as the best driver from every country video that we did. I think it was about 6 months ago now, where it went on for about an hour. But I'm going to try not to do that by talking about the things that we are going to talk about. And I think there's some positives. I think there's some negatives, and certainly some discussions. And I want to start with a positive out of a negative, namely Oscar. Now, the situation with McLaren we'll discuss later, but it is brilliant to see Oscar a bit more back to the Oscar that we know. The Oscar at the start of the season, where he was consistent, getting podiums, getting good performance. Like the fastest driver on the track over the weekend was Oscar Piastri, and the sprint race win showed it. And in terms of his performance and pace, in the main race, and of course we'll talk about other things. He was definitely the fastest, and actually there was some moves where I was like going, he's got it. There was a move that he did on Antonelli in the race where that was like a sort of a move that Lando Norris didn't make, let's say, right? I'm really happy with how Oscar's done, and I'm glad that there's some measure of performance back with him because he needs it. We're coming into the last race of the season, and we need to be in a situation where at least all the drivers feel like they're on form. And Oscar was the one I wasn't sure about. And after this weekend, maybe he's got that good performance, good vibes, good feelings back, and will take it into Abu Dhabi, which might not win him the title, but at the very least will make him feel more confident about how things have gone. So I want to say just absolutely fantastic to Oscar Piastri. Really good stuff. I'm really happy with how things went because he did not put a foot wrong at all during the weekend, and definitely deserved his podium. Deserved a little bit more than the second place, but unfortunately, Oscar Piastri for this weekend was driving for McLaren. Right. For those of you guys that didn't watch the race, here is the lowdown on everything that happened. You need to know the full context, the full story, right? So, firstly, this was a 57 lap race. That's important. What's also important is that Pirelli put an instruction on the tyres that because of the way that the track was, the fact that it is a very, very fast track, given it's the fact that it's a motorcycle circuit, there were cuts on the tyres after 20 odd laps. And they were like, right, okay then, for safety reasons, no driver is to do any more than 25 laps. 25 laps is the maximum. So you were going to be getting a two-stop race for anyone that finished this race. Now, this is important because on lap 7, which would have been like the earliest someone could stop to do a two-stop strategy, we had an incident and a safety car. And 3 drivers chose not to pit that lap. By the way, that was chaos, the pit lane with 17 drivers pitting at the same time. But yes, we had 3 drivers that didn't pit. One of them being Esteban Ocon, which, given the position he was in, might as well give it a go, right? The other two being Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the two McLaren guys. Now, here's my thinking. I firmly believe that the very reason why McLaren didn't pick their drivers was because of papaya rules. Let me take the first potential circumstance that could have happened. We could have had the first potential circumstance where everybody pitted on lap 7, where the safety car was happening. Now, with that being said, McLaren would have to double stack, which, because Lando Norris is the second driver, he would have been held up a little bit further. You know? Perhaps not the full 2 to 3 seconds that Oscar Piastri was stationary for, but certainly a couple of seconds that Lando Norris might have to wait whilst they service Oscar Piastri and it's taking a little bit longer, which increases the risk that Lando Norris then gets held up by a queue of traffic behind in, third, fourth, fifth, and then all of a sudden he's in a really dangerous situation where he could end up being behind a driver and losing out even further as a result. Then you have the other circumstance of, well, what if only Piastri and Lando Norris had pitted? And once again, because of how bunched up everything was, that would have ruined Lando's race a lot more than Oscar Piastri's, and we all know how McLaren is in regards to fairness. Basically, McLaren's papaya rules doomed the team from the start. Now, they could dress it up, of course, by going, oh, yeah, they've lost all their flexibility and they have to pit on lap 32 as a result. But ultimately, because of everything, everyone else gained about 14 seconds on the McLaren drivers, and they had to go like hell for leather, which was great on the first set of tyres, but didn't really work for the rest of it. And that basically killed the race. Oscar Piastri did well, and probably was in a situation that under any other circumstances, he would have been 10 seconds ahead of everybody else. But because of that, everything, he ended up being 7 seconds behind Max Verstappen, who won the race. Now, there's 2 takeaway points from this. Let's start off with the big elephant in the room. McLaren messed up. And I'm sorry, I'm getting to the point, and I think all of us are getting to the point. These papaya rules, they need to go. At the end of this season, if McLaren are challenging for a championship, a driver's championship next year, they need to do what Mercedes have done. They need to do what all other teams have done. What McLaren did in 2007, right? Let the drivers race and fight it out. No rules. You mess up a pit stop for a driver, don't try and cover over it. You don't feel comfortable about a penalty that a driver's got, you don't try and cover over it and make it team fair and everything like that. You want the easiest way to make something fair is don't take sides on either driver and don't get involved in either driver. Just go, right, you two are 2 drivers. Sort it out between yourselves. That's it. Done. Simple. But they have made it so complicated for themselves. On the other side, I want to say, as much as it was for safety reasons, the 25 lap max thing for the tyres made for quite a fascinating race, even if it wasn't the most exciting. And I think actually, if the race had panned out not being, under a safety car so soon, I think there'd have been a little bit more jeopardy in terms of trying to work it out, trying to predict, trying to see, okay, then how should we do this? Should we do 25-25-7? Should we do 7-25-25? Should we do, I don't know, 20 each? I don't know. And I think that sort of confusion could have could make a few other races quite interesting and fascinating and exciting. Not just saying you're mandated to do a certain number of stops, but actually you can't do any further than certain tyres. But maybe all the cars should just have tyres that are really, really quick, but run after like 10, 15 laps. For safety reasons, they have to do 15 laps max. I don't know. I'm just a bit boring. Really good race, really good fun, and really exciting all the way to the end. You know, we really didn't know how the circumstances were going to change. The point situation in terms of the Drivers' Championship changed, even up until the last lap when Antonelli lost out to Lando Norris, where Lando Norris got a couple of extra points. You can see where I'm going here, can't you? It's time to talk about Max Verstappen, Lambiase, and Kimi Antonelli. And here's the long and short of it. Antonelli, at the end of the race, received a lot of social media hate, accusing him of just giving up the position to Lando Norris and basically just throwing his position away to give Lando Norris the advantage. And as you know, how it happens with social media is that some of that hate ends up being death threats, ends up being something more serious, to the point where Kimi Antonelli changed his profile picture to just a black screen, shut everything out. Now let's start off, before we start involving GP and Max, let's start off with saying how well Mercedes have handled everything with regards to Antonelli. Apparently there are moderators that see the post before he does and see the comments before he does, so he doesn't get to see that, because as a 19-year-old kid who is literally being thrust into fame, no one had heard of him 18 months ago, he doesn't deserve to get any of the hate. So the fact that there are mods that are basically filtering it out, fantastic effort from Kimi Antonelli. So why are Red Bull involved in this? Well, this is the situation, right? Is that when Antonelli lost the place to Lando Norris, then a radio message came about where Lambiase said to Max, going, I don't know, it just looks like Antonelli just gave up the place for Lando, just drove off. And that probably fueled the cynicism and the skepticism that it was a genuine move. And Mercedes are angry at Red Bull, and they feel that Red Bull should be ashamed of themselves. And there's a lot of people on YouTube that are also saying that Red Bull should be ashamed of themselves and making that comment. Red Bull have given a statement. They've expressed regret over the comments, over the fact that Antonelli has had the death threats and everything like that. They've not apologised for the social media circus that's happening around Kimi Antonelli. And you know what? I'm kind of glad that they didn't express sorry for it. Let me explain. Let's start off with this actual situation itself. I understood GP's view of, like, I don't know what happened, it looks like Antonelli just drove off, because initially that's what it looked like to me. I didn't see the onboards, and it was literally just a quick reaction to it. And the way in which things have been going between GP and Max this season, a lot of their conversations have been about other drivers, other circumstances. Look back to Monza, right? When in Monza they talked about switching the positions for the McLarens, right? I don't know if this is to make it a bit more of like a friendlier vibe and a less salty vibe, but the conversations between GP and Max, apart from talking about how the car is and things like that, most of the time they're not. making sure there's still a friendliness showing between them. And actually, it very much looks like, they're gossiping kids, gossiping bros at the pub, that are just talking about, oh yeah, like that was weird. You almost look like you drove up. Like, that's just conversations that you make. And if that was the thought that I had seeing the race, and other people had seeing the race, the initial time we saw the incident before we saw the onboards, then surely it seems fair for GP to speak his mind and basically talk as if he's a Formula One fan. But I suspect you still don't believe me that Red Bull shouldn't be ashamed of themselves and should be sorry for everything. Okay, let me follow this up. I'm going to take you guys back to 2008, the final race of the season. Lewis Hamilton's first one. The "is that Glock" moment. No one made a comment that was broadcast aware, whether that be broadcasters, whether that be radio, whatever it might be, going, oh, don't know what happened there. Timo Glock just drove off and let Hamilton through. No one said that in Ferrari. No one said that anywhere, right? And yet, Timo Glock still got hate. As incorrect as GP's initial opinion was, I'm sorry to say this, the hate would have come neither way. It's horrible that that's the case. And by the way, if you are one of those people that wants to show hate on through comments and death threats and all that, you're the problem. Red Bull aren't the problem. They made a mistake. Mercedes aren't the problem. They are protecting their driver and making sure that people are looked after. That should be the case. People making their opinions on Red Bull, they're not the problem either, by the way, right? But the people who took it out of their time to either set up bots to send hate comments or send hate comments themselves to Antonelli's social media, you are the problem. No one else. That's it. Mistakes have been made, of course. But those hate comments were going to happen either way. Because for some reason there are just salty people. And by the way, yes, it would make sense that those people spreading hate to Antonelli, might have a liking towards Max Verstappen, but that doesn't mean it's Max Verstappen fans that are the problem. Ultimately, if you're spreading hate to anybody, you are not a fan of any driver. You are not a fan of the sport. You just want to cut others down. It's ridiculous what's happened. And yes, there needs to be a bit more responsibility in terms of, race engineers to drivers and everything like that, because everything's being broadcastable and everyone could be said, oh, by the way, yes, GP said that to Max, but Sky could have chosen not to broadcast it. Just saying. There's responsibility everywhere of going, right, what could cause there being a big amount of backlash and hate towards a driver, a team, anyone. Yes, the responsibility needs to be made, but no one should feel embarrassed or sorry for making a mistake. Who doesn't make a mistake? Red Bull, they've done nothing wrong. Certainly in this one, anyway. But they did something else. This would have been the end of the video, but, as we were preparing things, something else came through. We've had a shuffle in the drivers for 2026 in the Red Bull program. Yuki Tsunoda is out. And not just out of Red Bull, out of F1 at the moment. Isaac Hadjar has moved up to Red Bull. And Arvid Lindblad Arvid Lindblad, I think his name is. I think I might have said that wrong. Has now just joined Racing Bulls as Liam Lawson's teammate. Now, here's the thing. Arvid Lindblad, I'm not going to, pretend to be a genius when it comes to Arvid Lindblad. I don't know enough about him. I hope he does well. Sometimes you just know a driver's going to do well, and you hope that Red Bull know that in terms of the spark about it. Let's address Yuki Tsunoda, though, first. Do you remember when this kid was considered as like one of the bright sparks? Almost like, the next Alonso sort of thing, This guy has been screwed over big time. Not just this year when it comes to Red Bull, but just in terms of the stop-start, will he, won't he, this kid should have been at Red Bull a couple of years ago, giving it a go. But just everything that happened, Tsunoda joined when it was like, the Red Bull was finished when it came to the second seat. It was all about Max. And it was clear, right, that was the only shot they had of winning the championship. And Tsunoda had to make do with the chance he had. Where does he go next? I think it's a case where he'll probably keep an eye on Aston Martin and Cadillac for next year. Maybe even kick Sauber, moving to Audi. Will they stick with both drivers at the end of 2026? I don't know. I think a year out is fine, right? Drivers take a year out from time to time, right? That's fine. I think Ocon took a year out. I'm pretty sure he did. Came back, still okay, right? So I think there's still a future for Yuki Tsunoda. Of course, with Honda moving over to Aston Martin, that'd be where the focus is. And well, you already know my thoughts on the situation with Aston Martin and which driver Yuki Tsunoda would replace if he was to go there. If I wanted him to. So let's not talk about that. Because it's always the elephant in the room, and I'm fed up with talking about the elephant in the room. A Canadian elephant, let's say. But let's finish on the positive. Which is Isa Kajar. I obviously have been a huge fan of Isa Kajar. I said it multiple times this season, and I even said last week that he was going to be my next one that I was going to be watching after Lewis Hamilton retired from the sport, because I see him as just as that guy. He's got that pro spirit, right? Do you know how much I love this? This kid at the start of the season was considered an embarrassment by Helmut Marko. The genius it is, Helmut Marko, considered an embarrassment because he crashed out and because he broke down at not getting the chance to race in his first race and thinking that was it, that was the end. And now he's getting promoted in the same organisation as the guy who called him embarrassing. People have seen something different from Isa Kajar since. He's got the swagger, he's got the confidence about him. It's what we've been wanting to see. I feel like the way that he is the sort of, he's aggressive like Yuki Tsunoda, but he's kind of got a bit of a carefree attitude as well, that he's just going to let things go. It's almost like the perfect blend of the next young star. And with the regulation change, I just hope that Red Bull give him the chance. And I think what is a bonus in this is that the CEO of Red Bull, in Lawrence McKees, was obviously managing Isa Kajar for the first half of the season because he was looking after the Racing Bulls program. You almost get the feeling that Lawrence McKees probably went, we've got to have him. We've just got to have him in Red Bull, no matter the cost. I'm so proud of Isa Kajar, and I just hope he gets enough of a chance to show that he's got something about himself. Get a few podiums to add to the one podium that he's got this year. A bit of swag, a bit of spirit, It's such a good story outside of whoever wins the title to be positive about. I'm keeping a really close eye on Izakaja, and I really hope he does it. Really, really hope he shows himself to be one of those top drivers. In a similar sort of realm to like Carlos Sainz. You know, at the very least, doesn't have to be absolutely stellar, winning every race, but showing himself to be competent and competitive. I think he's got the chance. Given the right tools, he'll have the chance, and I'm really ecstatic for Isaac. This has been a fantastic year for him. Probably one of the best. I would say he's probably been the best driver of the season with the tools that he's got. Probably Carlos Sainz could, run him close, for the best driver of the season. But yeah, just with everything that's gone on, Isaac Hadjar, well done. Just well done. So good. So good. But that's next year. Let's come back to this year. We are 4 or 5 days away from the end of the season, and we still don't know who's going to be the world champion. I'm looking forward to what happens in Abu Dhabi. I hope you guys are too. And until next time, until we get to see who wins the title, who is the winner, who is the loser out of everything, take care of yourselves. Best of luck for your driver at the weekend. I will be rooting for Oscar Piastri even more so now he's the underdog. I hope I end up being correct, but to be quite honest, again, whoever wins it, they will deserve it. This has been one hell of a season. We're going to have our last race review next week, and I hope to see you there. But until next time, guys, take care.